I'm thrilled. 300 people like you are donating to help me make videos about roads. And I want to thank each and every one of you individually. And this time I'm going to actually do it. So let's get started. I call it Thanking You, Implementing Expressions of Gratitude in Our Community.
That's lame!
Also, I'm taking some of your questions that you've sent to me on patreon.com/roadguyrob. So in no particular order, let's start off with thanking Patrick N., who was the fifth person to start contributing. Thank you to Brian and Laura, and to C. Dubs, and to Fatlander, thank you both. And to CJ Brick, who asked the question, hey, I saw on a video of yours that you used to live in Oregon. Did you enjoy living in Oregon? And one more question. Do you think Portland's freeway system is well built, or do you think it needs to be worked on? Oh, I've got some opinions about the Portland freeway system. But first, yes, I enjoyed living in Portland because I didn't even need a car. This is me waiting between a bus from Sandy, Oregon to grab the MAX train to head back to Northeast Portland. It was really neat to live in a place where it was proof it is possible in America that you could live car-free. They actually cared about you as a pedestrian. As far as Portland's freeway system, I think... Okay, Portland's roughly the same size as the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake City. And in Salt Lake City during rush hour, even with traffic, you can get pretty much anywhere at about 50 miles per hour. But in Portland, whether you took the train or drove down the street or on the freeway, you just couldn't get above 30 miles an hour. It was excruciatingly slow to get from Gresham to Hillsborough if you needed to do it. This is, by the way, I took a picture of this long before I studied any engineering or anything. You notice there's a ghost ramp right there. That was to a freeway that got canceled called the Mount Hood Freeway. It'd be fun to do a video on that. There's a Portland trip coming up at some point in the future that's always been like 3 months away, but then the pandemic hit and it just kept getting farther and farther into the future. But I can think of about 3 or 4 videos just on Portland alone. Aubrey was the third person to start contributing. Thank you very much. Thank you to Brian, who tells me he used to watch my videos right as they came out in the middle of the night, because I post the videos in the middle of the night because that's when I'm done with them, because his newborn twins were keeping him awake. Those kids are now in high school. Amazing how time flies. I'm just kidding, by the way. And thank you to Owen, who is now a fan of Minneapolis ramp metering. I actually interviewed somebody with the Minneapolis Department of Transportation to go more in depth on experiments Minneapolis has done. And it's been waiting on me driving out to Minneapolis to actually tape that story, but someday. Thank you to Paul, who I need to reach out to because Paul made a recent donation that I think had an extra 0 in it. And if that's a typo, I want to make sure you know about it. Or if not, you're a huge fan and I appreciate the vote of support. Thank you to Trevor, who tipped me off that there's now a very small subreddit dedicated to RGR videos. Thought it was one of my friends who put it up there. When I found out it wasn't, I was both flattered and a little scared. Thank you to Jeffrey. Thank you to Joe, who is not just a contributor, he's also going to be my expert interview on an upcoming video about how red light cameras work. Thank you to Kyle, who tipped me off about Fairfield, Ohio, where you can make left turns off of this busy highway, but you can't go straight. Something that reminds me of Michigan lefts. Kyle asks, what drove you to a career in traffic engineering? Would love to hear about your interest growing up. I used to draw MUTCD compliant road markings in chalk on the patio outside the kitchen growing up. And my mom bought me a little stoplight and a stop sign and a do not enter sign. There was one area where it was only big enough for the big wheel to go between the tree and the flower box. So that was a one way. And then I'd put the stop sign with the do not enter sign behind it so that you couldn't see the do not enter sign when you were going the correct way, but you could see the stop sign and vice versa. We'll dive more into my background in subsequent questions because there's a few more in there. Thank you to Mark. Say hi to your buddy Adam for me, by the way. Thank you to Jules and to Will. Thank you to Connor, who is one of my in real life buddies for 15 years. And he appears as an extra in one of the videos. Keep an eye out for him. Connor, who could ask me this in real life, but sent it in, said, can you name one thing missing from the 2021 infrastructure bill? Actually, half the bill, more than half of it, is an existing surface transportation bill. The add-ons only make up like 45% of it. It's not automatic that federal fuel tax money gets spent. Congress has to authorize the spending of it about twice a decade. You can see clear back, bipartisan, clear back to the 80s. It was just one of these surface transportation bills we were due to have anyway. It just added on a little extra spending. But if I were to guess something that was missing, since it was pretty comprehensive, there really wasn't much missing. It needs something big. Like, how about my crazy idea of on interstate routes, like key ones, I-5, I-80, I-10, you add lanes that have they're barrier separated, they have no speed limit, but here's the catch. They're only for zero-emission vehicles. An American green Autobahn. Only flaw with that is I don't know if American drivers can handle it. Thank you to Jason. He calls the videos well-researched, which I appreciate. I try to put at least as much work into each video as I would put into an engineering college term paper. Thank you to Nathan. Thank you to Alex, who credits the YouTube algorithm for helping him discover the RGR videos. Thank you to Icky Bus.
Buses are dirty and stinky and slow.
By the way, Icky Bus had my back. One night, I released a video, and the Patreon link was broken. In the middle of the night, messaged me to say, hey, you got to fix this. And I got up and fixed it. So thank you. Thank you to John and to the other John who writes, if you were a city planner for a city that has basically a non-existent public transportation system like Tampa, how would you go about creating a new system from the ground up? What systems would you prioritize? Which types of neighborhoods would you serve? Transportation and land use are like chicken and the egg. The land use drives where people live and where people work and where people shop, and so that influences the type of transportation we need. But then when you make improvements to transportation, it can affect the value of the land, which can change the land use. And so a lot of it is looking at, well, where is the city planning to grow up? Transit works really well in dense areas. We want to make sure we connect those dense areas together. And there are metropolitan planning organizations who look at this. They help regions come up with their kind of top-level 30-year transportation plans. And so they'll look at these growth projections. And here's a model here that shows, the darker the color red or orange it is, the more dense they plan it to be. So I just connect the dots and say, all right, all these new mini downtowns out in the suburbs, tie them together. Think of it like you'd be connecting a freeway system. Problem is, building a system like this would probably cost $20 billion, which Tampa doesn't have. Thank you to Madeline, who writes she wants to see some cool, crazy intersections when she visits Berlin. And despite my German ancestry, I've never been to Germany. So if you know of any cool intersections, leave a comment below for her. Hopefully she can go check it out. Thank you to SR, which I'm assuming is short for State Route. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. Thank you to Ben. And thank you to Greg. And to Sunny. Thank you very much. Wes, Andre, and Jim, who writes, I love your videos. I wonder about your experiences in the real world, well, thank you, of a major metropolis in the Northeast or Europe. One thing I've noticed, though, is as you start heading back east, things get weird. You don't even have to get all the way to the Northeast. This is outside of Chicago on the Indiana Toll Road. I'm going from I-80 to I-80. And to do that, I have to do this. Yuck. The other thing, too, if you actually get into the Northeast, Boston has the Mass Turnpike, and to save money, because I'm cheap, I took old Route 20, and it's hilarious to see a road like this with driveways on it constantly. People in BMW X5s who, could buy and sell me 10 times over, blowing through, in suits and ties at 70 miles an hour on just like a regular street. It's wild. Nathaniel calls Road Guy Rob videos criminally underrated. Thank you, Nathaniel. Thank you to Jason and to Cowman133 and to Berto, who writes, I'd be curious to know a bit about your education background and how you got into the civil engineering path. Well, it goes back to the 1990s. I'm a kid, a teenager, and Interstate 15 through Salt Lake County. They rebuilt it. all the way to the ground, complete tear down, every inch of pavement, every bridge, completely rebuilt the freeway. And back then, public outreach wasn't through social media. It didn't exist. And the internet, only a few, nerdy kids like me got on there. It was at the local library. You'd go and they'd have an entire map. You could see the diagram of all the interchanges where the lanes would go, all 17 miles. And I'd go to the library and just stare at that thing. I'd see these weird interchanges that I later learned were called SPUIs, the single point urban interchanges. And it just fascinated me. I grabbed every flyer they had and took it home, and it inspired me to start drawing cities of my own. I take 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper and tape them together. I'd be bored in biology class or whatever when I'm supposed to be taking notes. I'd be just drawing. You ever notice how you're sitting in some kind of lecture and you do something else and you can pay attention better? I can go back, even though it's been, in the 90s, maybe over 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago, I can go back and look at some of these city drawings. I still have them. And remember specific lectures from 9th grade biology. It's nuts. So naturally, following on this passion, I majored in communications and built a pirate radio station in my dorm because that makes sense.
I was just wondering if you have any Goo Goo dolls that you could play.
In the broadcast journalism program, we had a real little TV show that went out in the Salt Lake City market, and you'd get to be a field reporter and do real reporting. And so I went on the TV show and basically did Road Guy Rob videos before they were Road Guy Rob videos, because I was a general assignment reporter. We all were. But yeah, it was a reporter-driven newsroom because they're trying to teach us how to be reporters. And so I would find a transportation story. There's usually one every week, and I'd go cover it. My entire student career, my entire paid radio career in news and in producing, I always was good at covering the local transportation stories, even though that wasn't my primary responsibility. And so naturally, getting 10 years in this business and starting to get some legs under me, what did I do next? I went back to school and majored in engineering. I got a master's degree in it. And it was an 18-month program, and it took me 5 years because, radio DJ brain. And here's me in I think it was a mechanics of materials class, and I had to go to the little room downstairs where the TAs are. And one problem took all afternoon. I think when I went to work that day, I worked till midnight. But I worked hard. I graduated. I got that degree. And armed with my advanced degree where I could go out and make a lot of money, I now dance for nickels on the internet. Thank you to Fleming Flemingson, which I'm sure is his legal birth certificate name. Thank you to Jeffrey and Jesse, Matthew. Oh, by the way, Jesse mentions he watches because he loves civil engineering. Thank you again to Matthew and Michael and Nathaniel and Thomas, who tells me he found Road Guy Rob videos and then went on to Netflix all of them, in that he raised prices and cut back on password sharing. No, he binged them all in just a few sittings. So thanks to Alex M, who writes, happy your channel's doing well. Thoughts on travel to other countries to make new videos, like visiting China. I saw some really interesting traffic management ideas, that's for sure. China would be fun. They actually had more well-to-do engineering students who were undergrads in my grad program would do a semester abroad in China. And I was in my 30s and, had a job, so I didn't go. I wasn't my kind of thing. But man, the pictures they brought back, China would be fantastic to go to. Only problem is I would probably say one too many Xi Jinping jokes and end up in Shenzhen jail. So maybe it's good for a while that I don't go there. India, what'd be fascinating is India, because you have such a high population. And perhaps India, who's been expanding motor vehicle infrastructure in these cities that have way too many people. If everybody there had a car, you could never accommodate everybody. Thank you to Timothy and to Tommy, who says YouTube sent him down a road rabbit hole. Thank you to Zach, who tells me he's a transportation nut who sticks around for my videos' style and substance. I feel good about that. Thank you to the Hacking Group Anonymous. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you to somebody who just didn't want to share their name. Thank you to Alexander, who really liked the opening music for that video about the light rail train that runs through the apartment building in Pasadena. How would you like to live above a train? and wanted to know what song that was. It's called Gold Medal by somebody named Sander Kalmiger. I buy music so I don't get copy struck. There's a production service called Storyblocks that I can afford. And it's not an ad for Storyblocks. I just, shout out because it's great that in a world where, they want to charge you, $80 a track, I can just pay one blanket fee of a couple $100 and get all the music I want. Thank you to Alex, who is another in real life friend who's appeared in a couple of videos. Thank you to Anders and Daniel, who writes, "Congrats, your videos are honestly my favorite on YouTube." Well, that's cool. Because of your engaging explanations, humor, and fantastic production. My question for you, what are your aspirations for your YouTube channel, and how can your supporters help you realize your dream? Also, more importantly, what are your favorite types of tacos? Question 1, what are my aspirations for my YouTube channel? Well, my whole life, I've always been over planning. I was going to get the stable middle class job and get a house and pay it off early and get married and have 2.7 kids. And so far, none of it has worked out. Some of it's not my fault. A fair bit of it is my fault. Any of you, by the way, have a cute single sister around age 30? I'm just asking for a friend. Yeah, for a friend.
This video is sponsored by nerdmatch.com.
For the first time in my life, though, I'm not planning ahead because I know if I make a plan, my dreams won't come true. It's like not telling anybody before you blow out the candle what your wish was. So I keep making these because 300 and some odd of you, you join 300 some odd people who believe in what I'm making, and you're voting with your wallet. So I appreciate your support. I would have quit by now if it hadn't been for you. So thank you. YouTube really pushes on you to release once a week to keep that algorithm happy. And you've seen the production I put in these videos and the research. I would die if I got a video done in a week. In fact, the video on the San Diego bike lanes, I did that in a week, and I nearly died. I drove to San Diego twice. Every day I put in 18-hour days. Everything came together, and it was wonderful that video happened so fast. But I'm still recovering. That's why I'm making this video with a PowerPoint instead of doing the one I should be working on about red lights. But what are my favorite type of tacos? May I be forgiven. Baker's Drive-Thru in the Inland Empire of California makes a very non-authentic taco that is cheap and delicious. The ground beef is of good quality. You get a big slice of tomato. It is mwah. When I leave the West, though, what saves me is Taco John's. It keeps me company as I go across the Great Plains where the choice of Mexican options really narrows down to basically Qdoba. When I was driving across the Great Plains in the big 26-foot moving truck, I parked like a half mile away next to the Walmart in the semi-parking in the dirt and walked all the way back to Taco John's because there's no place to park over there, and I really wanted it. Here's Burlington, Iowa, where I said, screw it, and just jammed that truck right into the parking lot anyway, and I had to cut through an alley to get out of there, and I was tired. Thank you to Andrew and Austin. Thank you very much. Brian. Charlie, thank you. Charlie tells me he's a big fan of old traffic signals and road signs, has a collection of them. I want to know, do you have a yellow stop sign? Because I've been trying to find one to film, and they're hard to find. Thank you to Dan, who says he shares RGR videos with his friends. Isaac, Jason, Katano, thank you, each of you. Thank you to Michael, who had a beautiful picture here. It's too bad he dropped his phone and broke his flash. Thank you to Matthew, who writes, thanks for entertaining me with something outside of my field of knowledge. Well, you're welcome. Partly, you realize news reporters can be dumb sometimes. And partly why I've realized news reporters get such a bad rap is because they're presenting the news as if they're experts in every field they cover. And they're not. They're only experts in being news people. Sometimes not even that. So it's easy for them to make rookie mistakes because they go cover a story that involves chemistry or biology. They don't know chemistry or biology. And then they go cover a story about sports. They might not know sports. And then go cover a story about financial news or the housing market. Well, they don't know that. And so they make mistakes all the time and make themselves seem foolish. And had the news industry not collapsed back in 2008, there's a good chance I'd be on some local station somewhere making a fool of myself each night, having to jump from topic to topic. But what's cool about you guys paying me is I can focus in on just one industry. I can microcast instead of broadcast. And then as I make mistakes, I can learn from them and try not to repeat that mistake in the next video. So it's kind of a fun side note. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to Minneapolis Bike Ride, which, by the way, if you ever want to watch point of view videos from the point of view of riding a bike through the Twin Cities, check that out. Spell it just the way it is. Not to be confused with MPLS Bike Wrath. Thank you to Nate and to Nick and to Tony and to Alejandro and to Corey and to Dan and to Ian and to James, who writes, "Congrats, Rob. Your channel is one of my favorites. You put so much effort into making your videos top notch, and I really respect that." That's not a question, Gabe. No, I'm just kidding. Gabe does ask, though. Oh, boy, that's long. I grew up in New Jersey, where many main road intersections have a jug handle for turning left with a Jersey barrier in the median. Oh, that's what they're named after. In this way, the traffic in the left lane of the main road can move quickly without worrying about left-turning vehicles slowing down. I really like this as design, but what do you think about it? People from other states don't seem to react positively, but I believe it helps traffic flow more smoothly on major roads, and I also think it reduces the amount of time the traffic light cycles through yellow and red because it moves the left turn completely. Well, that is true because you're going from a multiple phase signal where you have, you know, not just the cars going straight this way and the cars going straight this way, but you also have the left turn arrows that you have to wait for. And those left turn arrows have a yellow and a red that you have to, you know, slow you down a little bit. It's a little bit of wasted time. The closest I've seen to a jug handle would be here, 102nd in Halsey in Portland, Oregon. And the first time I rode through this, I'm like, wait a minute. So to make a left, I got to go around this circle. That's kind of odd. I have not spoken to an expert on jug handles or anything yet, so this is just my own pontification. But I suppose when you look at this from Google Maps, you can see, okay, you're going around in the circle. Why? Well, because look how much space you have to work with. You have a left turn lane, but it's for going southbound, and this is the northbound left turn. And to add that additional turn lane, you'd have to widen the street, and there's a gas station and a car toys electronics store in the way. But if you have that vacant land on the corner, you can use that to make a jug handle. Here's a Jersey jug handle example, and my gut instinct, I don't get it. Because with the existing pavement, I could just restripe it, voila, and I have my left turn lane. And then I could save all that land just south of the street that is wasted on the jug handle. However, look how many cars are queued up there waiting for that signal. I need a much longer left turn lane than I've drawn in there. So there's probably some wisdom to it. But again, this channel is not about me, in my opinion. It's about finding the right expert or book or manual or some type of data to dive into so we can actually take a look at what's real and not just my opinion. Thank you to Martin and to Nathaniel and to Paul, who loves the content and passion. That's cool. Thank you. Thank you to Ryan and to Tyler and to Riff and to Aaron and to Aziz, who finds the videos awesome. Thank you to Benjamin and Evan, who writes, "What's the craziest road you've ever used and why? Anything that particularly sticks out in your mind?" That is a tough question. The craziest? I can think of some that are kind of weird. Craziest? I've got to think about that because I've been on some crazy stuff, but I'm hitting writer's block a little bit. I know off the top of my head, this road here, where it looks like you're just driving through the countryside, you know, like in western Utah. But this is not just a road through the desert. This is supposedly the Great Salt Lake Causeway to Antelope Island, the biggest island on the Great Salt Lake. And the only problem is the drought has been so bad in the last 20 years that this is just tragically funny. I mean, a causeway over no lake at all, which I'm sure won't be an environmental disaster in the future. It'll be fine. FDR Drive in Manhattan is weird because you don't expect effectively a it's almost a freeway along the edge of one of the densest places in the United States. It just feels so out of place. I'm sure it's absolutely necessary as part of the circulation plan for Manhattan, but can you imagine a scenario where somehow there was magically billions of dollars and you could take FDR Drive and put it in a tunnel like Seattle did and open this waterfront back up so the east waterfront was as nice as the west waterfront? Here's one in LA, the Marina Freeway, California State 90, and that's it. It's like 1 mile long with a big freeway interchange. I'm sure it was part of a bigger plan. It's something I'd love to get into the newspaper archive sometime and find out what was the plan for this 1 mile long freeway that never got finished. By the way, you can see the South Park studios there, right at the terminus of the freeway.
Screw you guys, I'm driving home.
West Hampton Avenue in Denver. There's bridges and exits, so it's clearly this freeway, right? I mean, you're coming up on the bridge here, there's the exit, and then all of a sudden, you come around a corner, bam, you're at a stoplight. And I get it. That's not totally uncommon. Lots of non-interstate expressways just suddenly end at traffic signals. They're not grade separated all the way. But then the expressway picks up again after the signal and keeps going. And then you get on the other side of I-25, and in the middle of, like, Englewood, there's a diamond interchange. Is a stoplight right at the end of the ramp. I don't know. That's weird. Thank you to David W. for contributing. Thank you to J27 and to Frenzy2, who's a big fan, I guess, of the London double-decker buses, the new ones, not those old bike-eating accordion buses. Thank you to Andrew and to Austin, who writes he appreciates that my videos don't just sell the good parts of roads, but they also look into what might be bad about them. Thank you to Brandon and to Matthew, who asked me, when do the donors on Patreon get a shout out? People like you have given money. Well, I said, that's a good idea. I should do that. And hitting 300 donors, that seemed like a good time to throw the party. So give him credit for this video existing. Thank you to Tom and to Nicholas, who writes Texas, in his opinion, is the worst state to drive in, followed by New Mexico, Illinois, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Indiana, California, New Jersey, and Florida, in no particular order. Thank you to Alex and to Amaze, and to Blake, and to Bry, as in Bryson. Thank you to Paul, who writes he drove through a diverging diamond with his roommate, and now they're both fans. He also appreciates that Road Guy Rob does not dive into left versus right politics. Yeah, I'm glad too, because I don't want to touch that hornet's nest. Transportation is inherently political in terms of policy, because you're spending public money and you have to have public involvement. But the cool thing about it is, even though it's a political beast, we're all on the same side. We all want to get somewhere safely and efficiently and spend as little money as possible doing it. So that's the neat thing, is ideologically, we're on the same side. It's just squabbling about how specifically we want to go about it. And in that same vein, Trump or Hillary, who was worse? Just kidding. What got you interested, Paul writes, in making videos about roads and road accessories? And do you have any thoughts on what your content might look like 1, 5, 10 years from now? Well, Utah was building a new freeway. It started when I was in high school, the planning process, and it continued well into now. They're still building. It's called Mountain View Corridor. And the open houses, as they were planning the alignment of where this freeway was going to go, happened while I was doing television reporting in college for the real TV show we had. And Salt Lake City's a top 30 market. It's an open house. All the other TV stations were there, and I didn't want to look out of place and embarrass myself, so I did the research that I thought a reporter was supposed to do, that you get into the environmental impact statement, you read the executive summary, you look at the process for the alignment, do all that research. So I felt prepared, but, kind of nervous. I went in and got an interview. The PR person set me up with an interview with the project manager, the top person over the entire freeway project. And I got in and asked my questions. And as soon as I turned the camera off, she said, wow, you really asked some detailed questions. Normally reporters come out from the TV stations and they ask questions like, well, is the freeway going to be noisy? When's the freeway going to open? Why do roads cost so much? And made me realize, well, wait a minute, maybe I might actually be good at this job, Now, if you gave me a sports story, we'd be in trouble. Then in grad school, and I have these engineering classes. It quickly became clear on the group presentations that you don't want me doing the AutoCAD work or doing the math. Let me build a bridge and you're going to die. It's not that I'm bad at math. It's just that there's so many other engineers who are so sharp at that, getting in with the data, getting in and building the Excel spreadsheets and doing all kinds of stuff. And in a grad school class, you could go onto Canvas and look at the distribution of grades, anonymized, and there's only 6 of us in the class. And we could sit down, the 6 of us, and pretty much figure where everybody was, who was. And they assumed that here's, Rob, and he's taking notes and paying attention and doing the reading and printing out the slides and really paying attention. He must be the top student. And I showed him, no, I'm the bottom student. And the reason why I'm so studious is because I'm a radio guy. I'm going to get lost in these classes if I don't really hunker down. But you know what I was good at? When it came time to present. Oh, man. Who's going to do the presenting? And everybody puts their hands down. I go, yeah, I'll do it. What might the content look like 1, 5, or 10 years from now, Paul? Well, clearly, we're going to go to the big screen in 3D. I genuinely have no idea. I do know I'll keep you in the loop. If you're helping pay for these videos, I'll let you know what's going on. Thank you to BWMOXD, that I'm sure is not their legal name. Thank you to Dan Chanian, who... maybe that is your legal name. That'd be a cool one. Thank you to Edwin and to Evan. Gabriel suggests a video on New Jersey Jughandles. Well, I got 2 votes for that. Thank you to Griffin. Thank you to the International Space Station. No, I don't know. ISS. Thank you. To Jay, thank you very much. Jonathan, Jordan, I appreciate both of your contributions. And Jonathan here has been watching since the beginning. But the diverging diamond is the one that pushed him into the pool to become a patron. And Jordan, talking a little bit in our correspondence, I am absolutely planning to go up to Seattle at some point. If I do my Portland trip, I'll probably go the rest of the way up there. Camera is willing, but my time and wallet are still a little bit weak. Thank you to Kevin. And to Richter, who was the 4th person to start donating. And if Richter's email address is to be believed, I know Richter in real life. So how you doing? Richter writes, have you tried playing Cities Skylines yet? And the answer is, yeah, I tried. And they put you in such a small box that I just started feeling really claustrophobic. And it's hard because I'm so good at SimCity 4. This is a region I started in the tail end of the George W. Bush administration. It's 30 miles by 30 miles. It's supposed to be to scale of the Bay Area, but I redid it with a lot more sprawl. City Skylines, I'm a noob again. It's like going all the way back to 2003 and having to start over. And I was half my age back then when SimCity came out. I was a lot more patient to learn the new game, and I'll keep trying City Skylines. I've been so busy making videos. I haven't even had time to play SimCity, and I definitely grew that region out a little bit. Here's how much it's sprawled. It's now 20 million people all through suburban sprawl. It's my version of solitaire, I guess. Thank you to Thomas for contributing, and to Tom, who is another in real life friend. He and I worked at the same radio station about 10 years ago. Difference was the station manager trusted Tom to go on and fill in for the classical announcers, and they definitely did not trust me, ever.
Mozart with a little night music. And we're playing the greatest songs of all time. Susan hitting me up at 520-8989. She wants to hear that new Fritz Kreisler recording with the San Francisco Symphony. Sure. It's not my fault if it's Chrysler's on the Fritz.
Yes, Tom, talking back and forth. I do want to take your suggestion of digging into the history of carpool lanes and toll lanes and see how they work. So I need to start looking for an expert on that. Thank you to Jack, who writes, what are your thoughts on car versus pedestrian/transit/cycling in terms of infrastructure in the US and compared with someplace like the Netherlands. I've noticed your videos taking a less car-centric turn, and I'm wondering where the balance lies for you or if it's evolving over time. Well, let me make one thing clear. I am very much pro-car. This is the main drag that goes in and out of school I went to grad school at. And it was bad. Where do you ride your bike? And universities are full of people who ride bikes. So the city made a deal. We're going to take away one car lane in each direction. And then, everybody freaked out, including me, like, but the third lane, I need it. But it turned out it's better for everyone. This is how it turned out. You still have 2 lanes in each direction. You can pass a slow-moving vehicle. Traffic still flows as well as it ever did. But now the bicyclists have a safe place to go. And if I look at it selfishly, I don't have to worry about running over a bicyclist anymore. And so I'm a big believer in win-wins. You brought up, for example, the Netherlands, right? There's a certain other YouTuber who focuses on transportation and really seems to love the Netherlands a lot. And I suppose one could think about the thesis he's trying to state of saying, look, this is Holland, where the car is a second-class citizen, and as Americans, we should feel guilty all the time. And until we purge America of all places where cars are first-class citizens, we should feel this sense of guilt. But I don't think that's his thesis at all, because if you go to the suburbs outside of, Amsterdam, you run into streets like this. There's no sidewalk at all. And I saw this and thought, aha, I caught him. See, the Netherlands is just as bad as the United States, except that's not true. If you zoom out and look at the big picture, instead of trying to jam the bicyclists to the side of this road, they just built a different facility slightly farther away because they realized a bicyclist doesn't need to get involved with a freeway interchange. This is a win-win. This is good for cars. This is good for bicyclists and pedestrians. That's my philosophy. When we build roads where we just ignore certain users of the road, it's bad for that user of the road, but it's also bad for everybody else. And it doesn't cost that much more to take a few minutes and think through the bicyclists and say, where does somebody on an electric scooter go? Let's plan that out. Thank you to Peter G, who writes, Road Guy Rob videos scratch my infrastructure curiosity itch in an accessible way. That sounds like something I'd put on my LinkedIn. Thank you to Colin, who donates $4.20. That can't be an accident. Thank you to Blanco Grande and to Chasbo. Thank you to Dave and Emilio and Jimmy and Roman and Adlai, who's also like me, a native Utahn who moved away from the Beehive State. And thank you to Alex and to Scott, who pitches the idea I should do a story on the removal of San Francisco freeways or the ghost ramps of Seattle. Both great stories. I'll put those on the board. Thank you to Jetfire007 and to Amir, who compares my videos to Mythbusters. That's a huge compliment. And right now, I make a solemn vow that if in one of my videos I blast a cannonball through an unsuspecting house, I will show you the footage. Thank you to Dixon and to Aaron, who writes, congrats on 300. I'm looking at going into traffic engineering. Mazel tov. That'd be cool. What route should I take? Route. That's funny. And do you have any advice about that path? Oh, man, the puns are great here. So when it comes to doing traffic planning and engineering, there's kind of a broad spectrum, and it depends what part of it you want to go into. There's sort of the civil engineering, as we know, the people get in with the dirt and the pipes and the rebar and the bridges and really look at how this thing is built. On the other end is the question, why? And that gets into looking at land use planning, because all transportation does is move people. And to calculate how much transportation we need to look at how many people there are and where they're starting and where they're ending, and we can calculate how much they need to consume. In the middle is traffic consulting, where you're trying to bridge that world between coming up with something that the hard engineers can design and build and something that's kind of the 30,000-foot view of what needs to be done. Oh, by the way, don't forget about electrical engineers, because they do all the lighting and traffic signals and ramp meters and stuff too. So if you're more kind of a nerd about geeking out about that, I have my 3 I's intro classes. Intro to Civil Engineering, Intro to Urban Planning, Intro to CS, Intro to EE. Then do internships. A lot of companies are eager to try you out as an intern because it's a great source of recruiting. It's cheap labor. It gives you a chance to try the industry before you buy, because you might find you hate it and you want to shift emphases a little bit. Better to do that early. But you might ask, well, okay, that's great. I'm supposed to do internships. How do I find these places? And that's the third I, involvement. And this is my sales pitch for the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's a group of engineers who work in the industry, thousands of them across the country, and they form little clubs, little chapters. And I guarantee your city has one. Just go to Google and type in, name of city, ITE, and they meet like once a month, have lunch. You get talking with people at your table. And they ask you questions because they're there because they're looking for new interns. And you can say, yeah, I'm interested in active transportation. And they may know people and say, yeah, I know somebody over here at AECOM was looking for an intern. Let me give you the number. Just tell them Barbara sent you or whatever. The land use, I'd recommend the American Planning Association. Or if you want to get into really hard civil engineering, check out the American Society of Civil Engineers. They also cover non-transportation stuff, buildings and bridges and dams, and check those out. If you're still getting stuck, shoot me an email. Let's talk. Thank you to Michael and to Mirza and to Ruben and to Jonathan. Thank you very much. And to Chris, who tipped me off about a goofy three-way stop in Austin, Texas that used to be a one-way stop. But then they added the other two stop signs. And the only problem is that one straight ahead that's way in the intersection, they couldn't put it where it needed to go because somebody's driveway was in the way. So they just stuck it too far. I don't know. Thank you to Colin and Krissa and Eric and Fisher, who tells me transportation is a speculative hobby. Thank you to Garrick and Patrick, who writes, I love the videos and I'm a big fan. My one question would be, what state, in your opinion, has the best road infrastructure overall? So I started going down the list of places I've been, and I say, well, Oregon was kind of cool because you had a place that people actually cared about me as a pedestrian. But as I mentioned, the freeways, I rode with somebody who 20 years ago was 65 years old, driving down the freeway here, and he said, yeah, this is a time capsule. This is the way the freeway looked like when it first opened, when he was a new driver. Trying to widen a freeway in Portland is touching the third rail. It's just a political non-starter. So this is what Portland gets. This is the 2 freeway in going to Glendale, California, outside of LA. And if I get the video to play here, this is a tunnel ramp that I took at 80 miles an hour in a 1995 Subaru and didn't even feel it because the banking was so perfect. The curve is a constant curve all the way through where it doesn't change. If you compare freeways to pizza, California is the best transportation pizza. Only problem is they planned for a party where they needed 30 boxes of pizza, but 40 people showed up. So they needed 40 boxes. But if they'd ordered 40, they would have needed 50 boxes. At a certain point, you just can't buy enough pizza. You run out of pizza to buy at the pizza place. Even if it's the best pizza in the world, more people keep turning up to eat it. And so maybe, even though you go all out to serve the best pizza in the world, maybe you have to provide something else to eat. So take that as an analogy for multimodal planning. By the way, this is the 405 and 10 Interchange, the first in the United States to be designed by an all-female design team back in the 1950s. So kind of a cool California transportation fact. So I can't vote for California because California leaned only into one mode. Texas is building a lot of amazing stuff, but they're building them all pretty much as toll roads. That's playing with cheat codes. So they're out. Connecticut would be very high on my list of being one of the states with some of the best roads. Compared to New York and Massachusetts that really lean into their toll roads, Connecticut, once they had their tolls paid off, they took the tolls off the roads. They seem well maintained. And as a compliment, I would say Connecticut freeways remind me of a freeway I'd see out west. Very just sensible and well maintained, and I liked it. But ultimately, my opinion doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, one guy on YouTube drove through a state and he liked it. That's not really that valuable. What is valuable is stuff from BTS. The original BTS, the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. I was a BTS fan before it was cool. And they looked at self-reporting from states of road condition. And if you get looking at what has the highest percentage, well, in terms of pavement condition, it's Tennessee, followed shortly by all of these states who have more than 90% of their pavement in good shape. So these would be the lists of the states with the best transportation. Only problem is that's only half the story, because you can also look at the spreadsheet of states that have problems with bridges. I'm crossing out the states with the most number of bad bridges that need to be replaced by square area. And that crosses out, there's actually quite a bit of overlap. So states like Iowa have good pavement but poor bridges. But that still leaves Tennessee there as being one of the best. So I guess I'd have to say, based on the data, and it was a beautiful state to drive through, the state of Tennessee. Well, by the way, what's the deal with that 60-mile-an-hour speed limit there? Through the entire South, speed limits were so slow. I asked somebody in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, what the deal was with that. And he kind of said, well, the thing about people in the South is that we just have a slower pace of life. The people drive slower. The people are slower. The self-deprecation made me laugh. I thought that was funny. Thank you to In7. Thank you to Jason, who was the first ever person to donate to Road Guy Rob all the way back in May of 2019, right after the video about the Cypress structure collapse and the Loma Prieta earthquake. And Jason has continued to faithfully donate every month since then. So, like, actual applause for being number one, Jason. Thank you. Thank you to Nick. Thank you to Roman. Thank you to Tamori. I'm sorry, I'm getting your name wrong. Thank you to Nicholas, who was the second person to start contributing. Thank you to Someone Too, who's apparently a hot dog. Thank you to Patrick and Chris, who writes, what was the turning point that made you decide to do this content full time? And what were you doing before YouTube? Right before, I was doing home remodeling. Voila, it looked good. And you say, yeah, well, you can make pretty good in home remodeling. And I'd say, not the way I do home remodeling. I made journalism money in that profession. When it really took off is after Phoenix Without Freeways. I spent way too long putting that video together. I think it's like 2 months, almost 3 months. And then that video came out, and somehow it clicked with the right people, and the YouTube algorithm ate it. And the whole channel went from 10,000 subscribers to 30,000 subscribers in 3 weeks? Okay, thank you to Matt and to Daniel, who tipped me off about those edge lanes. Thank you to, oh, that's definitely not on your birth certificate, JX3S22 OWDRKPJWH 5HAFP, who tells me his username has deep, significant personal meaning. And it's totally not random keystrokes. Thank you to Innuendo and James, who developed software for the transportation industry, and the videos let him peek behind the curtain and to see what it's like in the world of his clients. Thank you to Tyler, cute dog, by the way. Thank you to William and Christopher and Asaki. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Thank you to Kevin and Liam and Amanda and Financius as a great. Thank you to Joey, who says my videos remind him of an old PBS show called California Gold. I'll have to check that out, see if it's on YouTube. Joey writes, where is your favorite place to eat in Southern California? Do you have a favorite freeway or interstate interchange? Not a type of interchange, but an actual interstate. Well, there's this little hole-in-the-wall place I like. Maybe you've heard of it. It's kind of esoteric. It's called Wendy's. No, I'm just kidding. No, Cantor's Deli. It is just authentic New York-style Jewish deli in the working part of Hollywood, not the touristy part. And it's open 24/7. Everything is delicious. It's been run by the same family since the 30s when they came out from Jersey City. Now, as far as my favorite interchange, I've got a soft spot in Salt Lake City for the Spaghetti Bowl for a couple of reasons. One, they rebuilt this interchange while I was getting my driver license. In driver ed, during my first drive in driver's ed, I drove through the newly opened Spaghetti Bowl. And secondly, what a ridiculous name for the interchange. That doesn't look like a bowl of spaghetti unless you spilled it on the floor. At one point, too, I worked for a radio station that was at the base of the Spaghetti Bowl.
I hate classic country music so much.
You can see the building there and the ramps 50 feet in the air. And I parked my car and I got out of the car and I saw a semi-truck driving over the flyover ramp 50 feet in the air going 50 miles an hour. And I just thought, in all of human history, how absurd that is in a cool way. Of like, well, why did you build this giant concrete cathedral? Like, well, because there was a semi-truck full of spaghetti and we didn't want it to slow down. Thank you to Richard and to Andrew and to Brian and to David and to Christian and to James and to Cade, who writes, what's the worst mistake you've made driving? I don't know if the statute of limitations has passed.
No student parking.
University parking is for students, not for football spectators.
This campus.
So I can't tell you the worst one yet. December night, Boom Boom Pow was playing on the radio, Black Eyed Peas. I jumped on the freeway, tried to change too many lanes at once, lost control of my car, and spun out on this bridge. I don't know if it was ice or what it was. And amazingly, despite the song that was playing, hit no cars and no barriers.
But other cars I drove, not so lucky.
Thank you to Will Dog 50 for your contribution, as well as Robin, Asan, Cameron, Darius, Michael, Justin, Roger, Michael, Vi. Cats are currency. They are not. Cats are delicious. Thank you to H2. I'm just kidding. I like cats. I'm a cat person. Thank you to H2S BF7. Thank you to somebody named Practical Engineering who has this like little YouTube channel, you know. By the way, seriously though, if you ever want to collab, Grady, shoot me an email. I'll drive to San Antonio. I'll do it. Thank you to Ryan and to Asher and to Matthew and to Nicola, who writes, how do people react when you make a video in their neighborhood? I mean, for an outsider, you probably look weird. This guy in an orange vest snooping around with a camera. Do they approach you to talk? Do they call the police? That's where you're wrong. The orange vest, they leave me alone. Now, for the most part, people want to act like dorks because of the camera.
Our cities require a driver license because those fat cats from City Hall. Happy birthday! You just kind of naturally glide where you're supposed to go. It would actually be a good day. Well, thanks. Ah, you looked happy. Union Road had the same. Without fail, somebody lost. So what if we flip it? Not helpful. I discovered just how messed up Phoenix's freeway history is. Oh, shut up. So here in California, the ramp meters kick on at 1,600 cars per hour. Hi. Oi. Hey.
Hey, what's up to my mom?
What's up to your mom? You know, but it's amazing, actually, the other way around. You get a guy in his 30s with a clipboard and an orange vest. You blend in the background. People assume you know what you're doing, and they leave you alone. That's why on the first video, the Uber and Lyft video, I wore this costume. It was because I was filming on a parking garage because it's the only place I knew to go film. And I wanted the security guard to leave me alone. And he did, because I looked like I knew what I was doing. Now, do they call the police on me? No, I have to call the police on them. This fantastic woman started yelling at me while I was filming the ramp meter video with my drone, you know. She told me she wanted me off her street. And so I'm trying to get out of there. I don't know if she has a knife or something. She scared me. So I'm trying to land the drone, and she saw the drone. She says, "Are you filming me with your drone? You're stalking me!" So then she got so mad at me, she started wandering out into traffic and yelling at the other cars. So I had to call 911 on her. So that was fun. Thank you to Renato. I hope I pronounced that right. And to Tim. Thank you. Zach, Wise, Lee, for holding it down in London town. Thank you to Alberts and Bernard and Clement and Jeffrey and Robert and Zach and ZZ, who writes, I might be late to the party, but do you see any interesting difference in road planning between the East Coast and the West Coast? Oh, there are. I need to spend more time on the East Coast to give you an educated opinion. You know, one thing that comes to mind, though, is the median width when a rural interstate highway goes through a forested area. I mean, look on the top there on the East Coast, it could be really wide. And the West Coast, they kind of jam the freeways together more. Here's South Carolina, I-20. You can't even see the traffic going in the opposite direction. Pennsylvania, same thing. They actually cut two separate valleys for the traffic when it went through a hillside. West Virginia here. Commonly, you'll see medians back east of 150 feet or more. Florida, another example. But out west, here's Colorado, a pretty standard median. The medians are supposed to be 50 feet wide, but they can be as narrow as 10 in a mountainous or urban area. It's about 35. Flagstaff, Arizona, with its 50-foot median. A non-interstate highway in California. This is the 101, US 101, but, you know, that's really close. It's just a concrete wall. But there are exceptions to the rule. This is Interstate 84 near Ogden, Utah, with a very wide forested median. Granted, it's only for about a mile. And, of course, all over the east, you do find places that have standard width medians, like I-55 here in Mississippi. But thank you to Matthew and David, who writes, congrats on 300. Wondering how you got interested in all this. Are you a civil engineer? I passed the Fundamentals of Engineering test, which is a very hard intro test, and it prepares you for the licensure test of the professional engineer, the PE. So I'm not a licensed engineer yet because you need a lot more work experience and to pass that hard test. But if you guys keep paying me and I never get around to getting my PE, and you want me instead to just keep showcasing PE people who are very smart and have some cool things to talk about, I wouldn't mind. Of course, even back in my undergrad days, I was thinking in terms of engineering with this geography test that I lost a lot of points on the exam because of my lousy answer of how the natural greenhouse effect works. The Ford F950 that's got great torque. Thank you to McWiz or MikeWiz. Thank you to Wesley and Max and Tim and Ben and Brandon, who points out how uncomfortable the reversible lanes on 7th Avenue in Phoenix feel. Thank you to Brian and CP and Israel and J1411, who really liked the joke about Toys R Us getting bulldozed in the transit-oriented development video. Thank you to Jacob, who pitches an idea for intelligent transportation systems like variable speed limits. I'd love to find an expert in variable speed limits because to me, it seems like if they lower the speed limit, we're all going to go slower. Yet somehow we don't. I'd love to know the magic of the science behind that. George the Dev, thank you. And he asks a question. He says, why does California seem to lack those flashing yellow left turn arrows? And I think what you're talking about some is you have protected left turns, you know, green arrows. But those are less efficient than people yielding on green or one of those blinking, flashing yellow lights. That's called the permitted left turn. And I don't really know why California leans more into the arrows than other states. It may be a safety thing. That's something that would make a great video, actually. So I'm going to stick that on the board. If I can find the right expert to talk to, let's dive into this more. Thank you to John. Not that Chris Wallace tells me he made sure to go out of his way to drive through that diverging diamond I featured in the American Fork DDI video. So that's pretty cool. Thank you to Austin and to Joseph, to M63 Pi. Oh, by the way, Joseph mentions he wanted to be a patron. So he emailed me and asked, well, do you have a Patreon? And I sent him the info and he signed in to give some money to help support the videos and discovered he was already giving money. Chris, thank you. Chris was the first person who suggested I post early ad-free versions of the videos onto Patreon. And you may have noticed I've stopped doing that. I was using Vimeo. And suddenly Vimeo got really weird and expensive. Even small patrons like me sometimes get hit with big bills. I haven't been hit with one yet, but I'm waiting for Patreon's going to replace it with their own video service in the future. And once that shows up, the early videos, they'll be coming back. Thank you to Josh and to Matt and to Scott. And by the way, Scott, I hope the Planning Commission was going well for you. Thank you to Timothy and to Turnover, and to Aaron, and to David, and to Ethan, and to Kevin, and to Nathan, and to Matthew, and to Sarah, who's a huge car fan. Her whole family loves transportation and transit. Thank you to Nicholas, and to J.K. Lopi. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong. Thank you to Aaron, and to Azure, who writes, thank you for everything you do. Although I never would have thought I had much interest in civil engineering, you make it accessible, easy to understand, and most of all, entertaining. I'm proud to support you. My question is, on average, how much time do you spend traveling and on the road? Is there anything interesting you've seen in your travels? Well, my idea of driving my car around is sort of like the way people ski. It's my hobby, as I spend all my money on it. And even though I grew up in Utah, where the license plates talk about the greatest snow on earth, including Colorado, I've never been downhill skiing. I've never even seen Delicate Arch, even though it's on the license plate. But I bought my car, brand new, 4 miles on the odometer. And in less than 10 years, blew through 250,000 miles and counting. And I've gotten to see so many things that it's very difficult to say, well, what is like the most interesting thing I've seen? But a few pop into my head. One of them is, bumper to bumper Bakersfield mobile here. A driving school with an upside down stoplight on it. Makes me wonder about the curriculum. Thank you to Austin, and to Claire, and to Danny, and to DB, and to Ivan, and to Little Shy, FIM. Thank you to Uber Kitten and their friend Lift Puppy. Thank you to Xavier, or Javier, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I apologize, who hates the New Jersey expressway system. I really needed to go to New Jersey. That's like 3 or 4 votes for that. Thank you to Brett, and to Corey, and to Joseph, and to Kevin. Is that a lemur on your head? Thank you to Paul and Perump, who donates modestly, would give more, but most of his money is going to pay his daughter's college tuition. Thank you to Kieran, and to Tom, and to Erwin, and to Albert, and to Alexandra, and to Anvil Devil. Thank you to Burley, and to Devon, and to James, who writes, what's your all-time favorite road sign? Easy. My favorite road sign of all time is Boring Sandy. I took this picture right outside of Clackamas Town Center Mall when I lived in Oregon. And I'm so sad because the Oregon Department of Transportation has taken the sign down, and now it just says Sunnyside Road. But it's good while it lasted. By the way, Boring, Oregon is a very real town. I've been there. It's small. It's the kind of place where maybe the Oregon Department of Transportation is, say, demolishing a restaurant. And you see that restaurant and you think, I wonder if I could have that. So you go talk to the demolition contractor who says, as long as it's gone by Monday, I don't care where it goes. So you flatbed it and you move it into the backyard of your farm and it sits there. That's Boring, Oregon. Thank you to Ming and to Robert. Oh, wait, that's my test account. Oh, forget that loser. Thank you to Ryan, who shares a full name with a friend of mine from high school. I might be him. But either way, thank you. Thank you to Shugnusi, and to K200, and to Wireforks, and to Edward, and to Hades, and to James, and to Samuel, who pitches an idea on the story of advanced driver assistance technology, kind of the autopilot type stuff. I checked in on a conference last summer, and there's a lot going on in that field. It's a fast-moving topic, but I wouldn't rule that out. That'd be a fun topic, especially how it connects vehicle to infrastructure, because that's a big part of it too. Thank you to Tom, and to Alex, and to Gary, and to 9Clicks, and to Rich, and to Silent Rizamo Studios, and to whatever Scoop. Thank you to Danny, and to Little Yuli, and to Carlos, and to Neil. Thank you to Philip, Jim, Nicholas. Thank you to Clorox Bleach. Clearly not product placement with that avatar there. Thank you to Adam, and to Alexander, and to Body with a Zero. Does that mean you have no body? That's sad. Thank you to David, and to Eric, and to Jeff, and to Notson, and to Michael, and to Nicholas, and to Pulaski. Thank you to Richard, and to Robert, and to Simon, and to Tanner. Thank you to Tim, who looks like somebody who'd be fun to hang out with. Thank you to Zig, Thank you to Bill. Thank you to James. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Rico. Thank yous to Brian and to Morphine Bear, Patrick, Benjamin, Dan, Jacob, Poe. Thank you to Soggy Cereal.
Avoid romanization.
And I must give thanks to Billy Go, my mentor and one of my best friends in real life, who sat me down one day and said, "You call that Korean?"
Yeah, I'm not touching that.
But also, you need to take these videos seriously. So I have. And thank you to you if you've become a patron since I put this video together and didn't get a chance to include you. I've tried to include everybody I could. I'm frankly surprised that in an Ask Me Anything, my very first one, where you had a chance to literally ask me anything, nobody asked about the chicken. So the mystery lives on. I guess you can ask in the next AMA. When should we do that? 1,000 paying subs or 100,000 subscribers on YouTube? I don't know. We'll find an excuse.